A young boy bravely saved an unusual dog from the river. 2 days later, he found himself filled with regret. However, what followed was nothing short of astonishing. As the boy scanned the water, he spotted a dog drifting lethargically. It seemed to have surrendered to the river's unforgiving currents. Without hesitation, James dashed into the water, driven by a mix of compassion and a poignant memory of his recently departed canine companion, his cherished best friend. The situation was fraught with peril. Not only was there a risk of the dog reacting aggressively as he approached, but battling the river's relentless flow was no easy feat. Nevertheless, James, an ardent animal lover, couldn't simply stand idly by and watch the dog succumb to the river's grasp. He was compelled to intervene. By the time James reached the exhausted pup, it offered no resistance, welcoming his rescue. The dog was surprisingly light, allowing James to maneuver him through the water, inching toward the riverbank. Exhausted but relieved, James finally reached the safety of the riverside. Yet the dog's condition didn't improve. It had opened its eyes but lacked the strength to lift its head, bearing multiple wounds. James surmised that the dog might have suffered injuries from river debris. Regardless of the cause, immediate help was imperative. He sprinted home as fast as his legs could carry him, urgently imploring his parents for assistance. The dog, though still breathing, remained in grave peril, prompting the trio to swiftly pile into their car and race to the nearby veterinary clinic. The vet agreed that the dog was not doing great, and he was a lot weaker than he should have been from just being in the water for a while. It was a mystery, one that the vet was determined to get to the bottom of. The gashes on the dog's body didn't look like wounds from debris. Instead, it looked like bite marks. The vet feared that the dog was attacked. They stitched the dog up and got him on medicine. While the dog was in the vet's care, James came to visit him a lot. 2 days after James last went to visit Jack, as he called the dog, he got a very nasty surprise. The local police were waiting for him. They wanted to arrest James. Even with the vet speaking out for the boy, the police took him to the police station. James was terrified. No one wanted to listen. They didn't believe that he had saved the dog from the river. They kept accusing him of hurting the dog. He couldn't believe his ears. It was enough to almost make the boy regret saving the dog, but when he thought of Jack's little tail wagging when he went to visit, he knew it was still worth it. After speaking to James's parents, the police released him and apologized. What they had to say was very shocking, and no one expected what would happen next. The police knew about a dogfighting operation being run in the area. They had found a bunch of dogs with bite marks being dumped all around, but these dogs hadn't made it. When they heard about Jack and his wounds, they knew he had come from the same ring. The police were desperate to shut down this illegal and horrible ring. They even had a suspect who they were certain ran most of it, but they didn't have enough on the man to pin him down. They heard he had teenage boys working for him, and since Diego was a teenager, they figured he was part of all of it. Thinking of Jack as part of a dogfight was heartbreaking. No wonder the poor boy looked so broken when James found him. The boy wanted to help. His parents didn't like it, but they allowed him to make the choice. He offered to help the police find proof of the dogfighting ring. Since the man employed teenage boys, James might get in without him getting suspicious. He was a big businessman and they might get nothing on him, but it was a better option than doing nothing. The police weren't sure about using a boy, but seeing how eager he was, they decided to go for it. This could be their only chance to save more dogs. The next day, James went out to the man's home. The man was called Smith, and he had a big piece of land without buildings. James asked to see him and then explained that some of his friends worked for Smith and told him that he could ask for work. He even gave him some names of people that used to work there. James told the man that his family was in financial trouble and that he wanted to help them out. Not thinking a boy would help the police, the man agreed to give him work. At first, it was small jobs like washing his cars or clearing out the horse stalls. James often heard dogs barking, but he could never find them. Then one day, Smith told him to clean up one of the outbuildings. When he went in there, his heart dropped. It was a big building with chairs in the corner and an area in the middle that was fenced. The inside was filled with blood. That was what he had to clean before starting. He sent photos to the police and asked what he should do, but they needed more evidence. He had to clean it. The poor boy would have nightmares about that scene for a while, but the incident showed that Smith was starting to trust him. The men that worked with him also came and went, and they got used to seeing the boy around. It was horrible, but one of the things that they had been working towards. Soon, this incident was going to pale in comparison to what happened next. Smith came to James one day and offered him a raise, but he would have one chore added to his schedule. He wanted the boy to feed all his dogs, but since he had too many, the boy wasn't allowed to ever speak about it. With his heart beating loudly, the boy agreed. Smith took him to a room filled with dog crates, many stacked on top of each other, and inside them, there were dogs that looked miserable. James couldn't believe how many there were. Some still looked fine, but others had many scars that had healed over time, some badly. James couldn't believe it. He promised them he was going to help them out of this miserable life, and his opportunity soon came. Smith told him to get a bunch of dogs ready for an event. He wanted them out of their crates and moved to the room with the fence. James knew that the time had come. He knew the fighting ring was going to stage a fight soon. Taking the dogs to the room felt horrible. Knowing what they were going to have to endure was terrible, and the boy felt responsible for them. But the police told him to do what he was told and then go home. James left with tears streaming down his face. He just hoped that this was going to work. The police watched from the bushes all around the land. They saw many people arrive, with security checking everyone as they came in. As the flow of cars came to halt and security personnel withdrew, an ominous scent settled in. The dreadful event was about to commence. The police swiftly mobilized, corralling everyone in attendance and accumulating ample evidence to levy charges against them all. Smith, at long last, faced the prospect of a lengthy prison sentence thanks to the substantial evidence collected, primarily due to James's efforts. Over 100 dogs, including those intended for fights that night, were rescued from this ordeal. Many of them were equipped with microchips, reuniting them with their relieved families. James, rightfully hailed as a hero for his courage, had brought light into the lives of these dogs. Jack's family, however, seemed destined for a different path. With young children to consider, they harbored concerns that Jack's trauma might trigger aggression. Despite any apparent signs of hostility, they were hesitant to welcome him back. Then, a remarkable turn of events unfolded. One day after returning home from school, James found Jack waiting for him. His parents had decided to adopt the dog, allowing their son to reunite with his beloved companion. This ensured Jack would be embraced by a loving family, and James would once again have a faithful pup by his side, a just reward for his selflessness and bravery. I hope you like this story. Please give it a thumbs up and consider to share it with your loved ones. Thank you.